So thank you for coming. Today is going to be a very pretty presentation where I'll tell you a little bit what we did in terms of, physically where we moved and where we went and the places we visited and the things we saw. And also parts of the leadership program, and it will go together where we learned it, what we learned, and what we did, 80 women for 22 days at sea, plus a few days before then, a few days after, what we learned all together. So before I start, just think a little bit about yourselves, because although this is leadership, for women, it actually applies to anyone at any stage of their careers. So what we learn is actually useful for anyone at any point. So does anyone ever feel here that they have too much to do and not enough time? No. In academia, who would? No. Or do you ever feel that you have different areas of your life pulling you from different directions, and then you want to be there for everything and everyone? It's just quite hard to find that balance. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Anyway, so we talked a lot about that, especially for women, with, sometimes making decisions to having a family, and then, having all these issues of being pulled in all directions. How do you deal with that if you want actually as well to have a career and get into leadership positions? So this is one of the reasons I went to Homeward Bound. So Homeward Bound is a leadership program for women in science. Not all women were scientists. There were a lot of women with a science background that were maybe science communicators or museum curators, or other women that were working in fields that related to science somehow. The aim of the program is to enhance the impact of women and to encourage them and give them the tools they need to get into leadership positions to be able to influence policy and decision making. The idea is to train 1,000 women over the course of a 10-year period. So I actually got quite lucky that I was at the start of the 10 years, so the second iteration of the program, because we were only 80 in the boat. In the next few years, there'll be 120. And it is a one-year program. So it is not only for the 22 days that we're away. It went on for a whole year. And it culminates with this expedition to Antarctica. So why did I apply for this? So why Homeward Bound? First, why Homeward Bound? There are 50% of recent college graduates that are actually women, and 45% of the global workforce is represented by women. But, and this is a big but, globally less than 15% of leadership positions are held by women. And so at those places where important decisions for the future of our planet are being made, there are a bunch of men, who are, I'm sure, very nice, sitting around the table, except that the research has shown that gender-balanced teams are a lot more effective and a lot more cooperative, and there is a lot to gain from having gender-balanced teams. In some places, there is not even one woman representing in those tables represented. So it's quite hard sometimes to find that balance at that level. And so I applied because I got this new position leading a project and wanted to do a good job at it. How? What do you do actually when you're actually, leading a project, or even just leading, it starts with leading yourself. And so how I got into Homeward Bound, I put in an application which included a 2-minute video. Just that took me out of my comfort zone. Michael helped me with the video. He features in the video. And yeah, it was already something that I hadn't done before. And once you've done it, a first time, then you can do it again. And that's how you learn that this is part of growth. Every part of the program was part of making me grow. So that's something that I really liked. And I then had to fundraise the funds to be able to participate, and I got incredible support from many donors, from the science faculty, the UWA Central, and the School of Ag and Environment as well. So it all started here, familiar picture. It all started first in Perth. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we did before we actually sailed to Antarctica. So during that 1 year, we had monthly calls with the leadership team. So they were teaching us various things about leadership, encouraging us to do a set of activities. One of those was reflecting journaling. So every time just to sit and write out our thoughts, just because that helps us get some distance with whatever is going on inside, and is a really useful way of just, getting more clarity about what's going on. We worked a little bit on visibility. The first stage of this was to write a 100-word profile and adapt that to different audiences. I did part of that, not all of it. Then we had a lot more work on visibility in the boat, so in the ship, not boat, ship. And I'll tell you a bit more about it. We were corrected about that many times. You don't say boat, you say ship. We did some 360 diagnostics. And so it was basically a set of words, and we were to describe ourselves if, that word described us often, or very often, or always, or never. And so I did one myself, and I asked 6 people, colleagues and boss, to actually do that as well for me, and to actually see how they perceive me. So this was called the Lifestyles Inventory, or LSI. So it's a tool developed by Human Synergistics, and they gave the tool to Homeward Bound, so that, they have an arrangement for Homeward Bound, so that Homeward Bound can use this tool. So the LSI number 1 is how we see ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, and then number 2, LSI 2, is how others see us. And this tool also helps us understand what people look for in a leader. So this is what it looks like, the results. These are not my results. But it's kind of a 360 diagnostics, where from the number 11 to number 2, the blue one, is what reflects a healthy balance of people and task-related concerns and promote the fulfillment of higher-order needs. So basically, when people are mostly in the blue, they're thinking both about people and about task, and what they want to achieve. So they are bringing both together. In the green, this represents an unduly strong orientation towards people as opposed to task, fueled by and reinforcing individual insecurity. So people in the green are always going to focus more on making people happy rather than the task themselves. And the red emphasizes task over people and is driven by underlying insecurities. In the extreme, these styles lead people to focus on their own needs at the expense of those of the group. So these are people that are basically so focused on the task that they crush everyone, and they move towards them no matter what. So what is interesting about LSI is to see first how you perceive yourself, second, how others perceive you, and whether they're both looking a little bit similar. Mine looked entirely different. So I perceive myself a lot less well than others perceive me. I'm very, very hard on myself, which weren't news to me. It's just to have it there in the, to see it in the tool, it was really confronting. And that helped me a lot to actually then move to the next step, which is, this needs to be fixed now. It can't continue. So when I think, a lot less of myself than others. And so we were also finding out what we seek in a leader, what we want to see in a leader. So we sat down together at a table, and the 80 women at different tables, and we actually did that, imagining how will the ideal leader be? Someone that we will really, absolutely just admire, like to work with, and just be extremely happy as a leader. How will that person look like? And we answered the LSI for that person. And so what was very interesting to see is that all the tables, and we did the averages between everyone in the table, and we had a look at the results from all the tables, and they pretty much all look, here is very hard to see, this was my table, we weren't very good at coloring, but then all of the results, everyone in the room wanted a blue leader. And that doesn't mean that he's a better person or a less good person. It just means that that's what we're looking for in a leader. Just more blue, more of people that know how to balance concentrating on task and people at the same time. So this was all during the year. Well, part of that was in Ushuaia as well. We also had coaching sessions to actually let us, help us understand a little bit more about what was going on in those diagnostics. We had trials, so meetings with, on Skype or Zoom or something online with other members, other participants, and this was a hell. Like, to be able to manage the time differences between everyone, because you were randomly allocated people that you were going to actually talk to, and there was one in California, one in Japan, the other ones in Europe, and then me in Australia. Go figure a time to all of you. I mean, for me, 5 a.m. is fine, but for most people, not. So it's really, really difficult to actually find a time between all of us. So we ended up doing some calls in the evening with half and some other calls in the morning with the other half. It was quite challenging. We did a lot of fundraising. So with the Perth team, we were 6 women to go from Perth, from different organizations. We got together to fundraise the funds together. These were lessons learned the hard way, and it was extremely challenging. And, that's when you start learning about, I thought that I had this capability of working with people that were very different from me. Oh man, I just had not met people different from me. So that was, interesting. And we did it. That's the amazing part of this, is that when you have a common goal, and you have frequent interaction, and then you know that you have to bloody get through it, whatever challenges you have, because otherwise you don't get your fundraising done, you get it. We had also books to read. So there were 2 that were not compulsory, but it was better for us to read them to actually get there with a little bit of content already. And some others that were recommended, but these 2 were the ones that were preparation for the course. Playing Big by Tara Moore and Crucial Conversations by a bunch of authors. And I highly recommend them if you actually want to read them. The Playing Big is more targeted towards women. But at the end of the day, I think both men and women, we can all benefit from leadership, from personal leadership. And I'll do a little exercise from Playing Big in a moment. And we also had research projects. So these research projects, we had a bunch of, we came up with a bunch of topics that we thought were the biggest environmental challenges that we face today as humanity. And out of all of the 7 different research themes that emerged out of that, I picked the plastic pollution team. And we worked a lot. We did a research project on plastic pollution in the ocean. So today, I won't be able to go into that. There is just too much to talk about in terms of what happened in Homeward Bound. But on the 31st of May, I'll give a public lecture at the Oceans Institute where I will talk a lot more about the research project and plastic pollution in the ocean and related to Homeward Bound experience. And after all that year, seriously, in no time, the blink of an eye, February arrived, and then I was off. From Perth to Sydney, then to Sydney to Santiago, then from Santiago to Buenos Aires. And then here, because I was born in Colombia and my family lives in Colombia, I asked them, can you join me in Argentina? It's not that far from you guys. So I met with my family in Argentina. This is my cute family. They are the mama and 2 aunties. They all they're exactly the same height. You can immediately tell that they're sisters, and my auntie's husband. So we went to Bariloche, where it was already very cold, and I was already struggling. It was like, how am I going to do this? Walked a little bit in the forest. This is my mama. You can definitely tell that is my mama. And we went to Iguazu Falls as well. Really beautiful area. Here we are. See, all the same height. How cute. And yeah, we had a few days together, which was really good. And then after that, from Buenos Aires, I then went to Ushuaia, where the program actually started. And so we spent a few days in Ushuaia, meeting each other and working all together on leadership themes. So Ushuaia, it's not a very pretty town. It's like just, it's a port, and yeah, it has colors, but it feels like an industrial town a little bit. But then the view. It's really pretty. So everything, so Ushuaia, you just get, there is in winter as a skiing resort, I mean a skiing area, so you go there for skiing, and in summer you just go there for walking around the area. It's just amazing. And so this was the view from the lodge of the hotel, and this was the view from my room. So it was pretty cool. It was just really beautiful, and then to be there, to have that view, and to work, leadership, and to meet the other women who were all very interesting. It was just a really beautiful experience. So there in Ushuaia, we worked a lot on personal strategy map. So basically this comes from, it all starts with the premise that if we are not in control of our time, someone else will. Don't worry, someone will fill your time. So if we are not the ones deciding what to do with it, someone else will, that's for sure. So if we actually are serious about changing the problems of the world, we definitely need to stay very focused, to know our priorities, and after knowing our priorities, to know what to say yes to and no to. Like Goethe said, things that matter most should never be at the mercy of things that matter least. And that is something that is just sometimes so easy to forget, but it's just, we need reminders, and it's important to just keep coming back to this so that we actually keep doing the important things. So they showed us this really interesting kind of analogy where you have the rocks, which are the important things in life, the pebbles, which are the other things that matter, and the sand, the small stuff. There is a lot of small stuff. And if you want to get everything in a jar, which is your life, you have to fill in a way that the rocks go in first, then the pebbles around it, and then the sand. So basically in your life, the best way to actually have a full life is to do the important things first, then the other things that matter if you have time, and leave the small stuff, or just do it if there is anything around it that is possible. Otherwise, you end up with this. If you put the sand first, then the pebbles, and then last the rocks, so you first start with the small stuff and last with the important things, you will definitely not have enough time for the important things. So that was quite a good analogy, I found. And so this is how personal strategic map looks like. I'm still working on it. So mine is filled, all my priorities are filled for relationship, self, and work. I just need to still work on what that means to me and make sure that that aligns with my values. So it's all interrelated. We want to make sure that we know what our important things are, that we make that a priority, but that it also aligns with who we truly are, because it's going to be different for everyone. So this values thing is extremely important. And I just was kind of really amazed by realizing how our values, really kind of, they really rule our life more than we actually think. So if we actually work or act against our values, we're going to be looking like these guys. There's like, only salmon can swim up the stream. We can't. So it's really important to just make sure, we're going to just be running, on the spot, without getting anywhere if we're working against our values. And this is also something very easy to forget. So we did a lot of work on values, and I'm going to make you do the same work. So we had a story. And so in this story, there was a man with his best friend and his fiancée, so a woman, and the sailor who was, driving the boat, and an old man. There was a problem with the ship. And the ship, they had an accident, and then there was a shipwreck. They told us this before going in a ship to Antarctica. Anyway, so when they got the shipwreck, the man and his best friend managed to swim to a nearby island, but the woman, the sailor, and the old man got into a smaller boat, and they got together to get to another different island, but that boat also broke. So the woman was desperate to get to her fiancé, who was on the other island on the other side. And she asked the sailor, please, please, sailor, can you help me? Can you fix the little boat so that I can get to my men on the other side of, of this big channel? He's just on the other island. I would just like to go there. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll do it if you sleep with me. Okay, she wonders like, I'll tell the old man. Old man, please, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you please help me? I need to fix this boat so that I can get to my fiancé. He's on the other island. I really need to get to him. And the old man say, so she told the old man, and the sailor, he just told me that, I should sleep with him to be able to get the boat fixed. Like, what am I going to do? And the old man said, your choice is your choice. You will know what to do. So the woman went, okay, what do I do? She ended up sleeping with the sailor. The sailor fixed the boat and took her to the other island, where she then found her man. And then she told the story to him, what had happened. It's like, look, this is what happened. This was the only way that I could come and get to you. And he got super angry. I'm not marrying you anymore. How could you do this to me? This is not going to work, between us anymore. That's it. It's finished between you and I. And the best friend went there and was like, oh, I'm so sorry for you. This is really bad that is happening. I'm going to help you and I'm going to take care of you. So now, just take a piece of pen and a paper or grab your mobile and use the notes. Rank the people, the man, best friend, woman, sailor, and all men, according to who has the best values and who has the worst values. For you. It's a very difficult one. So who would you think, I'm not going to share this publicly to everyone, just with the person next to you. So who do you think has the best values and the worst values? And there is no right or wrong answer. So whoever you put there.
So best goes first, right?
Yeah, the best goes at the top and the worst goes at the last. So I'm going to give you just 1 minute to actually do that. And if you can't write them down, it's good, because then that way you can compare them with someone.
Is it the one where nobody had the same ranking? Or nobody had the ranking?
Yeah. But it gets even better. Not only no one gets the same ranking. So it doesn't matter what your ranking is. It can be hard, but it usually should be pretty easy, because it's your values, and it doesn't matter what the order is. It's your values, and every answer is correct.
It should be set up as a best worst scaling.
Of course. But even then, we still wouldn't have them equal between everyone. Maybe some similarities, but...
But Michael could estimate the model and tell us.
Yeah. A survey on ranking.
What was that with the pebbles in the sand, Michael?
Okay. So now just share with someone that is right next to you, just behind or just, to your side, and compare your rankings. Just have a look at your rankings and see if you have the same. Okay. Woo! Okay. Thank you. This is the hard part. Okay. So, did anyone find exactly the same ranking? Equal. Same ranking. Exactly the same. You guys should work together the whole time. Just so that you know.
That's a bit suspicious.
The alternative
One is, I gave one version, the other is, they all have similar.
Okay, so not only is it really difficult and nearly impossible to find two people in the same, or two people around you. You know, we were 6 in our group, or 7, and we couldn't find 2 equal to us. But not only that, and I'm not going to do this now, but you can do that later if you want to, just for fun, try to convince someone else to change one of the rankings, the best or the worst. Usually the worst one is the most difficult to change. Try to convince and come to an agreement with a group, or maybe 5 or 6 people, who is the worst, the person that has the worst values. And to all come to an agreement with a consensus. Basically, everyone has to agree. So at least 1 or 2 people will have to change their, the ranking of the last one. We did that, and we never came to a consensus. Just so, and this was a half-an-hour exercise for us. So it was like really revealing. It was really incredible for me to actually experience that no matter what you do, you're never going to convince anyone that the woman was the worst. So understanding of values is one of the first steps of personal leadership, and we did a whole work on values. We had hundreds of words in front of us and taking them all to see what resonated with us, ranking them. And this is something that is not to do just once, but this is something to repeat quite often, regularly, at least every 6 months. And to work together, we need to understand and manage the value difference between people. That's extremely important, because otherwise you're just never going to get people on board if you're going against their values. So we need to make sure that everyone's values are respected and create a safe space for open communication and channels. And this is what it looks like when it's safe. If you actually are a little bit too much in the green, you could be avoiding or withdrawing or putting on a mask and not showing yourself as you are. If you're too much in the red, it could be actually controlling, going a little bit towards rage or attack or violence, and judging people a lot, labeling them. But if you actually meet halfway, understanding they have different values than I do, and we maybe not come to an agreement but agree to disagree, at least we have a share of, we could get to a shared understanding and yeah, interact better, easier, better together. So then we were off after the work in Australia to the White Continent. It's really beautiful. I didn't know there were mountains in Antarctica, it wasn't one of my first destinations on my bucket list. It's a bit too cold for Colombians. But then, wow, what an experience. I'll just send you all good energy so that you get to go all there one day. So we first had to cross the Drake Passage, which is this little bit here. And here you see the Antarctic convergence, this kind of wavy red dotted line. That's when the warm water from the ocean meets the cold water from Antarctica. And so it's very turbulent waters. But because here, the Drake Passage, they meet just at that tiny, at a much smaller, so you see Australia is here. Here is a large space, but here is really small. So the waters are very turbulent. So the crossing of the Drake Passage looks something like this. Although we had a lake. This is a lake. This is one of the softest crossings you will ever see. People that get seasick, don't look at the screen. So sometimes it did get quite, not much, but sometimes it moved a little bit more. For anyone seasick, they were out for 2 days. This lasts 2 days and a half. So you're out, especially if you're taking pills and all sorts of things. I'm very lucky not to get seasick, but a lot of people were actually taking pills, and it makes them drowsy. They're just out for 2 days and a half. So all the pictures and all the maps that I'm going to show you from now on are from this little area. So little, but that's where all the wildlife is. So we, and most people, only visit the Antarctic Peninsula because that's where all the life really is. The The emperors, the emperor penguins, are more sometimes like in here and inland a little bit. And those are the ones that, of course, we didn't see because they were too far. But all the rest are pretty much in these areas. So that's what we actually, get to see, get to go choose there. So this was our trip. This was the whole journey. So we came from here, Drake Passage, went up to a few stations, then all this way, then went all the way down, visiting more spots. And here there was a decision to make to go further south. We made it all the way down. So we passed the Arctic Circle, which is this yellow line. We came all the way here, up through this small stretch, and then all the way back, visiting a few islands, and then back into the Drake Passage. So now the top part of this map.
So how long did that take?
22 days at sea. Of those 22, well, 22 days less 4 because there's 2 days for the crossing, so 18 days altogether. Yeah. So here, for example, Half Moon Liner, that was our first landing. And so we had a briefing first. Every time before a landing, we had a discussion. This is what you are going to expect. This is what you need to wear. This is the conditions, the weather, blah, blah, blah. This is what you have to do. Do not take even a pebble. Repeat it every single time. And our expedition leader was Greg Mortimer, who is a very well-known Australian, apparently. Well, I've never heard of him because I've never had any interest in Antarctica. But he's one of the first 2 Australians to successfully climb Mount Everest with oxygen. One of the first 2 Australians to climb K2. And so K2 is not a joke. And so for K2 climbers, Mount Everest is a joke. And the first Australian to climb the Vincent Massif, which is the Antarctica's highest peak. So the guy knows his stuff, and he's been going to Antarctica every year in an expedition since 1980. So every year he goes to Antarctica. So he knows it like the palm of his hand. And so we will get on the Zodiacs and then go to our first landing and see. So this was our very first landing. Not much ice yet, but just, immediately wildlife. Like everywhere we went, there was something to see. It was just incredible. And then we went back to the ship and worked on some topic on leadership. So either a bit more on the personal strategy map, or we worked on our values, or we worked on something else. So there was always a topic or the different research topics, different science communication strategies. So we worked on a lot of different topics. So a typical day will look something like this. So in the morning we will have breakfast, then briefing about the area that we're going to visit, then we'll go ashore. Here is an example to actually visit the Great Wall, which is the Chinese station that we had permission to actually visit. Then we'll come back for lunch. And then in the afternoon, they will tell us where we were going to. Then the boat will continue moving. We'll move in somewhere, and they will tell us where we're going to be moving. And we will have a Homeward Bound session, so for the whole afternoon. And then dinner was served at 7 p.m. So it was about every day the same, except that sometimes, weather depending, we had to do the Homeward Bound sessions in the morning and then the landing in the afternoon. So we visited these 2 stations, the Carlini station, which is an Argentinian research station, and the Great Wall station, which was a Chinese station. And it was very different, the experience between the 2. In the Argentinian, we talked to all the researchers, the divers, everywhere. They got us inside the building and grab a cup of tea and biscuits. The Great Wall, they didn't want us to go away from the path, and they had very good reasons to actually be very careful about. They didn't know us. It was the first time that we went. The Carlini station, they had us, there already. We have 5 beautiful women from China in our group, and they had the luck to be able to talk to the guards that were there. And then they got an entirely different experience that we did, because we didn't understand anything, of course, and we just could stand on the little path, get there, take picture, and go away. And we couldn't even get close to the windows, so it was very important to stick to that, because then afterwards the next group will be able to go if we respect the rules. But actually the Chinese girls gave us their experience, and they told us that they were really sweet. They were telling them everything and stuff. They just were basically following rules from up high, but they were actually really nice people. So it was really interesting to hear their experience. And then afterwards we went to Paulet Island, so a little bit more into the top of the peninsula. So this is how it looked going through the waters. It's just incredible. You just don't get tired of taking pictures. And I always looked like that, 10 kilos on top. There was no way I would take a single layer off. So this is Paulet Island with a beautiful little lake at the top of mountain, and penguins everywhere. This is the little chick. The poor little chick hasn't quite changed his feathers on the top, so he couldn't go into the water yet. But yeah, so it was really cute to actually see all the stages. Some were molting, some were, some colonies were not, some had chicks, some didn't. So it was just really interesting to see the changes between all the colonies. So this is the ship inside where we were working. We'll have just the scenery outside, and then someone would scream, "Whales!" And the program had to stop for a few minutes, and then we would go back to it, and then someone would scream, "Seals!" And then it was just really, really funny, actually. But that would wake us up as well sometimes when it was a little bit hard after lunch, working on certain confronting stuff. So we did a lot in the boat of what's called peer coaching. So we learned to basically do coaching on ourselves and coaching on others. So basically this is mostly to learn to work with different people and to actually get to practice on our listening skills and asking question skills to get to know more about where people are inside them, to help each other, and to get people on board by owning whatever project or task we are aiming to achieve. So if people don't have it, don't take it on board with them, they either will do it grudgingly or they will not achieve it at the levels that they could. So this is why it's so important to actually get that knowledge together. And we actually worked a lot on the voices inside our heads. So I was planning on a visualization exercise, but I can send it to you because it's a really powerful exercise about making the difference between the inner critic and the inner mentor. So the inner critic is that little voice inside that is always telling us, "Oh, I don't think you're up for this task. I don't think you're good enough at this. Or, I'm not sure you can do this." And that tends to be a lot more in women, a lot louder in women than it is in men generally, but not necessarily. And it creates greater self-doubt in a lot of women. But then there is the inner mentor. And the inner mentor is actually someone that you create, meet. So one of the books, which is the Playing Big book, has an exercise in there that I can share with you on an MP3 file if you want to. It's about 10 minutes visualization exercise and a few 15 minutes of questions afterwards, where you sit down and you visualize going into the future and meeting yourself 20 years in the future. And so you meet that person and you go inside the house with him or her, have a cup of something, you eat something, you have a look at his or her house, and then you ask questions. What were the most important things for you in the last 20 years? What was the most important for you in the past 20 years? So that's, it gives me goosebumps almost, just thinking about it, because it is quite a powerful exercise. And then you ask, what do I need to know to get where you are? So there are, there are a few powerful questions that you can ask from this inner mentor, and that doesn't replace our outer mentors, so mentors that we have in life, at work, for a career, here at university, or etc. But the inner mentor is someone that complements that role of outer mentor, and is a person that is a voice that is there 24/7, is always there all the time, and we can ask whatever we want from that person. It's not a person that we'll ever become. It's like a North Star. It's somewhere where we're continuously moving towards. So because fear often paralyzes us, we worked a lot in the boat and getting tools for being able to recognize the fear, name it for what it is, and then step aside and be able to act. Because acting empowers us. So fear paralyzes, and the more afraid we are, the more paralyzed we will be, and it will be like a downward spiral. But action will be like an upward spiral, empowering us. So, and this is very important, talking to that inner mentor and lowering the voice of the inner critic to be able to implement our personal strategy map. Otherwise, we'll just have a beautiful, pretty PowerPoint filled up with nice words that will not be implemented. So, have you guys met your inner mentor? I invite you to actually do the exercise, and I'm very happy to share with you on an MP3 file, because it is very powerful. It's really beautiful to actually imagine who you will be in 20 years. And sometimes you might get surprised of what that person looks like, what that person eats, where that person lives, what furniture they have. It might be entirely different from what you imagine now. And it could be quite nice to actually do every day a little thing that gets you closer to that. Maybe just buy one piece of furniture that looks like that. Or dress one day a week like that in a mentor. You know, just to move towards that North Star purposefully. And we also worked on visibility, which had basically 3 key things to remember. The purpose. So what do we want to actually achieve? That has to be clear in our minds. The audience, who do we want to be visible to, and the medium. So are we going to use platforms such as social media, you know, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and those kind of things? Or are we going to use blogs, or are we going to use books, or are we going to use conference presentations? So it's like that helps you prioritize what you're going to say yes to, because you know what type of visibility you like and you want. Otherwise, you will say yes or no to who knows what, but you don't know what that is going to bring to your career. So then we went a little bit further down, visiting lots of places, and I've got a few pictures just to show. A beautiful whale that came really close to the boat, ship. It was really cute. We saw orcas. Oh, I just did not expect to see orcas. I was so excited when we saw them. So we were out on the zodiacs one day, following the orcas at a safe distance, and taking pictures of them. It was really cute. We saw whales and whales. So these are the videos by Ellen Moon, who was a beautiful woman on board, a participant. There's Crabita seal, Webbel seal. Forgot. I'll do my revisions of the wildlife names in Antarctica. Seals, leopard seals. So these guys are very hard to see. They are very different from any other seals. They have a much bigger head, a leaner body. So you see that how seals look cute because they're fat. And they've got very, very small little face. You know, they look like little dogs of the sea. These guys, oh, you immediately can tell you are dangerous. And actually,
the most dangerous animals.
Divers actually, yeah, have to come up out of the surface and to the surface and away. Ooh, so I have to speed up. Because, yeah, they're quite dangerous to divers. So this one is a video of a leopard seal that was quite close to the zodiac. And it gets creepy because it felt like it was following actually the zodiac. Look at it. Ooh. I wasn't in that zodiac. I mean, I'm happy actually not to have been in that zodiac. But I was actually at some point in a zodiac where the leopard seal was not far away eating a penguin. Ugh. It's just, and that's what they do, you know. But it just was such a, I don't know, strong thing to see, you know, like the thing going like that with the penguin and meat flying everywhere. It was quite interesting, you know, because yeah, you don't expect seals to do that, but these ones do. So yeah, we saw lots of ice everywhere. It was really beautiful, and penguins and more penguins and more penguins. So these are Gentoo penguins, the ones that have the little kind of crown on top with the white. Oh, look. Oh. Yeah, in that area it was. It's not everywhere like that, but in that area it was. That was a little bit one of the further north. Look. Yeah, they're super curious. A lot of the times they came to us. We weren't allowed to approach them, ourselves. But if we were standing and they came to us, we were just, no problem. They could approach us without a problem. It was not too bad. It was between 4, 0. I think we went to minus on a few nights, but never during the day really. So it wasn't too bad. And off he goes. Yeah, so beautiful areas with mountains, with ice just right next, to the shore. Lots of ice. It was really stunning. It was really beautiful. And you end up finding out that, it's funny how you see these animals and you kind of almost make a parallel with your own species, like, they're not that different from us. So you've obviously probably all been to a swimming pool, public swimming pool sometime, but this is the penguin version of a swimming pool. Look. Or just having a nice swim and, rubbing themselves in, getting a wash, just having fun. It's so cute. This one is mine. Ah? Oh, yeah, no video, picture. And you know how children can sometimes be very, very demanding, and they want the cookie, and they want the cookie, and they want the cookie. And, well, penguins want the cookie. So this is a chick getting fed. And off he goes behind the mama without leaving the mama alone. Give me my food. And the mama's like, no, leave me alone. But I want my cookie, I want my cookie. Oh, my God. It was hilarious. It would happen the whole time. The chicks would not leave the parents alone. It's like, and the parents sometimes had to escape to the water. It's like, no. And it would just not leave it alone. So that's how I imagine motherhood. Yes. So we went south from the Arctic Circle. There was a whole discussion about this that got into a little bit of a fight between the 80 women. But anyway, after that, we sorted it out, got through it, solved it together, learned from it, and went to this area here on the south called Horseshoe Island to go in the water with the beanie, of course. I was not going to put my head in that cold water. So you know when you grab an ice cube in your hand? Yeah, so this is me in the middle. So when you grab an ice cube and it's cold in your hand and it kind of burns a little bit and it's really cold and it very quickly numbs your hand or the skin on your hand, that's how it feels everywhere in your body. I had never done that before. Never in cold water things. Man, you do it once, never again, and it's good to show the pictures and tell people that you have, gone into the water south of the Arctic Circle, Antarctic Circle. So then we came back to this area, Deception Island. That was the last stop before coming back. And it was just beautiful. It was a really nice place to actually finish off our journey. It was just stunning. It was like this volcanic area with, black and monocolor areas with white and black. And look at that. It was just, the water was a little bit warmer than anywhere else, so some people did a second dip in there. But it was deceiving because it wasn't as warm inside as it looked. This is, a 6-minute video, so I won't do it. But this is kind of like a little snapshot of what we did, but I can send it to you later. So thank you very much.